everybody, you're watching Shasta's Journey. Sit back and be inspired. My name is Shasta Garcia, and this show is about real encounters of what Jesus is doing in and through the lives of others. And on this episode, I will be interviewing a very special woman who has had major impacts within my life because of my aunt who brought us together. Very grateful for that, and I'm excited for you to hear what God is doing in and through her life and how she's overcome everything that the enemy has tried to throw at her and life in itself. And I just really hope that she's a true inspiration to you wherever you are and wherever you're watching. So just sit back and be inspired. Thank you so much for being on the show, Star.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Of course. It's just, we've been trying to get this to happen for a long time now. So I'm excited that you're here. I'm excited to see what happens, and it's just going to be great.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Well, just so you know, Star's title that we did was church volunteer, but so much more than that. So much more than that. And so, titles do not define us. Right. And she is an incredible woman of God. So, Star, for those that don't know you and the viewers, how would you explain who you are and what you're doing?
I like how you put church volunteer, because I remember being young, I always wanted to work in the church. I always saw myself being part of a church. For some reason, I always wanted to be that cute little married couple, being really up in church. So, yeah, now I moved here from Texas 4 years ago and moving here, I found this church, and it's just kind of became my life, where it's pulled me in. They saw something, they saw God in me, and they've kind of actually helped me evolve to the person that I am today.
I love that. I love how God places people in our lives to make that happen.
Yes.
Thank God for that, right?
Very much.
Mm-hmm. And, that may not be your day-to-day job, but being a church volunteer is a huge part of who you are.
Right, yeah. If I'm not at home, I'm at work. If I'm not at work, I'm at church. And it's funny because the church, I love being there. I don't think too many people, I think people go to church on Sunday because it's out of habit, okay, it's Sunday, let me get to church, but me, it's Sunday, Monday, whatever day I could be there, I'll make an excuse to go.
That's a great perspective, because just like you said, a lot of people are like, I don't have to go to church. That's not necessary. I think it is, only because you're surrounded by other believers, and it's such an encouragement to be with your godly family.
Right. Yeah, and then just the family. It's kind of neat, because in Texas, I didn't have a church family. I'd go to church, but I went to a really big mega church. Everything's bigger in Texas. So I made sure I was hidden, because back then too, I wasn't as into church as I am now. I went because I was searching, I was seeking, I wanted God back in my life. So I went to a huge mega church where I was hidden. I was just a number there. And then I came here, and the church isn't a mega church, but it's got a mega God, and I love that.
Amen. I personally love her church. If you ever get a chance to check it out, they're a really great group of people. I've had the opportunity to speak there twice now, and from the toddlers to the teens to the elders, really great people. God is definitely moving in that church.
Thank you. Yeah, and we're just a big family too. It's not like a massive, huge church, but the family environment, the love we have for each other and for God, it's helped me, because I've never been around so many people who have a true, genuine love for God, and not just love, but a relationship. I remember walking in the first day, and something felt different. I'm like, what is this? And I see all these couples together, and they're worshiping together, and I'm like, wow, I need some of that in my life, than just the Spirit. I mean, it's a very nice experience just to be at a church where God's present.
What tasks do you do when you're volunteering and serving within your church?
I help with the children. I am a children administrator, so we have different, we have the nursery, we have the toddlers, and we have the Sunday school kids. I love the babies too. But even just the toddlers, I guess working with them, it's really nice when I come in on Sunday, even if I'm wake up really, really early to get there. The kids, when they see me, it's like their faces light up and they're like, Star, and they'll run to me, and it's just so precious, you know. But I like primarily working with them in the cute little room that we have for them. But I also help with youth, and sometimes I sing on the worship group too.
I love that. Everything that you said is a beautiful thing to be a part of.
Yeah, it's all very different, but it's all very fun, and it helps me feel that God, you know, I'm needed, you know. So I love that too.
Do you think that if you weren't serving in the church, do you think you can get through your regular workday?
Honestly, being so needed at New Life, I think that's helped me build a stronger relationship with God, you know, because being part of the church, so, I don't know if rooted is the right word, but being so involved in the church, I knew that I had to fix who I was, you know, not just on the outside, but on the inside, you know, because how can I be a witness if I'm not? How, you know what I mean? Like, how could I witness?
I do. Yeah, I really, really do. These feelings, these inner feelings that you're talking about, where are those coming from, and what type of feelings are you talking about? Just so we can go more into depth with that, because trust me, I feel a lot of feelings. I'm sure you feel a lot of feelings.
Where are they coming from? Well, like before I moved here in Texas, I wasn't, oh, let's go to church and work with the kids. Let's go to church and sing on the worship team. You know, I was more, let's not go to church and do other things, you know. And then, I don't know, towards, I guess, I've been here 4 years, so I guess 5 or 6 years ago, I just felt God tap it, like, okay, I'm ready for you, you know, when are you gonna share time with me, you know, and it just got stronger and stronger. So I started going to church when I could, not the big mega church where no one could see me and, you know, get to know me personally. That way I fulfilled it. Okay, I went, you know, but yeah, he just wouldn't stop saying my name.
Wouldn't stop pressing. Yeah, I got it. Well, you haven't always been the church volunteer that you are today and the incredible woman of God that you are today. It took a lot for you to get there, I'm sure, because, you know, we recently interviewed Pastor D, which is her pastor, and we talked about how you don't just come out of the womb and you're like, Jesus. It's like really like, you know, it's a process. It really is. And so what hardships and struggles did you have to endure and get through to get to where you are today?
Yeah, well, I mean, I grew up in church. My mom's family, they all went to church, but it was more like, okay, it's Sunday, let's go to church. And when I was a teenager, I actually had an amazing youth group, and I think that's where I actually had a really deep connection with God. But then high school came, and then after high school, my party life started. I joined a magazine crew. We used to go state to state, travel, selling magazines door to door, state to state. So we lived in hotels. Everyone was in between 18 to 30, I'd say. And we lived in hotels, and we would just get into whatever trouble, whatever city, state we were in. It would usually be college towns, you know, and it was fun. It was wild, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. You know, but I never really completely fit in. It was fun, but I knew, somewhere deep down, I knew that it wasn't where I was supposed to be. You know, although I stayed there for about 9 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Looking back on it today, what do you think was so enticing about what the world was offering you when it came to those 3 prominent things that you were just talking about?
Looking back, you just never knew what to expect. It was like just exciting not to know and to be free and away from home, away from, you know, responsibility, so to say. Because I didn't have any responsibility except to sell magazines, and that was that. And that was so easy, knocking on someone's door, hey, you know, gotta sell these magazines. But that was so easy. And and they weren't really too expensive. We used to say that we're not selling magazines, we're selling our personality. So I just had to smile and, be cheery. But yeah, knocking on doors, I mean, looking back, it wasn't the safest thing to do in strange cities. Being from Texas, I'd go to California,
You didn't do it
to
by
New
yourself,
York.
though, right?
Well, no, we had a group of people that we did
okay.
it with, but I would go door to door by myself.
Oh.
Yeah, and you never knew who would be on the other side of the door, So I've had some interesting encounters, I met some amazing people, some scary people, some weird people, Like those are stories that I guess you'd never believe unless you lived it,
Well, that's the whole point of Shasta's journey, is sharing jaw drop in, and just stories that nobody would believe. But you know what? These are real people with real stories. And
Right.
Star, you're just another person with a real, you're a real person with real stories. And you mentioned how these things were so exciting, and that's what was so enticing about it. But since you've been through that, how have you been able to fulfill that excitement and the enticement that you wanted and you were getting from your past sins and mistakes? How are you finding that in your daily walk of life today?
It's not really as hard as I thought it was going to be. I think that I've just came to a place where I've forgiven myself and I've forgiven other people. And I've just given myself to God completely, 100%. And, whatever He wants, I'll do, I'll go, And just keeping my eyes on Him in His Word, it makes it so simple, I mean, looking back, it's pretty much a miracle because, not doing drugs, not doing this and that. Most people, I know people who are so addicted, and they'll stop and then they'll go back. And because it's so hard. People say the struggle is real, It's not really that easy. So I'm just so blessed that God has a purpose for me to where it was just easy for me to just say, no turning back.
Complete 180.
Yeah. I can't explain it, but it happened, and I'm very thankful.
That's okay. I think the only explanation is
God.
Jesus. That's all. I think that's all that's necessary.
Yeah.
Just from talking with you, and I know you on a more personal level, but you had mentioned that, walking into this church, you were seeing these Christian couples, and as a single woman yourself, what is it like to just grasp and take hold of the relationship that you have with God with the desire to have that?
Since I was a little girl, I've always looked at the couples in church, and it was always my heart's desire to have that one day. And here I am, years later. But it's not really that hard, really, because I don't really think about it like, oh, I'm single, I'm getting old, I don't have children. I could, but why? It's going to take my focus off of everything else that God has for me, and it will come eventually. I'm not like, my clock's not ticking or anything like that. I know that God is preparing him, wherever he may be, for me also, so I don't sit and ponder and think about it, it's not really that.
I love that. I had to ask because
Yeah, of course.
there's a lot of women out there and young girls who try to find their identity and their worth in, sorry men, but men and other people, and I'm sure guys do the same thing. They look to the wrong things for their worth, and it's a scary thing because the other person that you're looking for and looking to, they're just a human being too.
Right.
They're just as messed up as you.
Right.
I have learned that, and I'm learning that. And
yeah, I've learned that too. I sold magazines, and I met a guy, and I thought, oh, he's my forever, We were together for 14 years, and that's when I felt God tugging too, because I wanted to get married. We weren't married. I wanted kids. We didn't have kids. There were so many desires that I had, and it just wasn't happening. And so it's kind of like I sat and I waited, and then I remember walking very, very, like it was yesterday, walking my dog outside, and there's this big field by where I lived, and looking up at the stars in Texas. They were bright and shiny, and the moon, and I would just pray. I'm like, God, I want this and this and this. And I remember hearing him saying, I know that you want these things, but it's not going to be with him. And I thought, at first I got mad at myself. I'm like, how could you even think that? Like, wow, why would you think that? You guys have been through this, and you've been together for this long.
14 years.
So I was mad at myself, and then it happened again. And then finally I'm like, okay, you have to show me something, So
I need proof.
I need proof. If this is God, please just show me. It's
Everybody
bad.
does that. It's hilarious.
bad.
It's like, you know what, God? You prove yourself to me. And I hear that all the time, like,
It's
especially,
terrible.
non-believers. And, if you've done this, it's all good because a lot of people do it. But they're like, I even ask God, we have a tendency to test God. Like, okay, God, so, like, if you really want this, then make it happen.
I know.
It's like,
It's bad looking back.
Shasta, you're the one that needs to be taking that leap of faith, that step of faith, even if you don't know
What's
what's going
stepping
to
into?
happen. Yeah, but he wants us to walk.
Yeah.
He wants us to be moving and
Yeah.
forward focused and forward thinking. But that requires us to take action ourselves.
Yeah,
It's not just going to be like, poof, everything's good. Even though we wish it was like that.
Right. I ended up losing my job, and then calling my aunt, and I drove from Texas to California.
And you left the guy.
Oh yeah,
After 14 years.
I left him there. Yeah, and I remember just
Wow.
on the journey, like driving my car, because I packed up my car, my dog, of course, and driving from Texas, Dallas, Texas, all the way to the East Bay. I had a lot of time to ponder and talk to God and worship, and I remember just telling him, okay,
I'm
I'm
doing
all
this.
you. Yeah, so talk about leap of faith. I had no idea what I was getting myself into. And honestly, I know it was the best thing for me, because it allowed me to become who I am today. Being in Texas, there was just so much there. It was my home, it's where I'm from. But I couldn't be the person I am today without those experiences.
All it took was your leap of faith to
My
jump
step.
in the car and get driving, right?
Yes, with full tank of gas.
I always try. Good, I'm glad. I always picture this thing, right? So, Shasta's journey, it's a journey, right? So, journeys, there's stops, there's bumps to get to our destination. Obviously, I know my destination. If you need to know your destination, you can talk to me. But, so I always imagine, like, God's already paved the way. So, he's walking. And, he wants to walk with us. But sometimes we, sit on the bench. We have to, ponder our past and do all these things.
Yeah.
And he's sitting there like, come on. There's some other cool stuff to see. That's the image that I always get. Or us trying to learn how to ride a bicycle, because spiritual maturity, you could be 80 years old and you could be still a child of God, So us riding our bicycles, and then we keep falling, and he's still the parent, so he tries pushing us into that, and then we're driving, then we fall over and we mess up, we make mistakes.
Yeah, we do make mistakes, but that's how we learn, that's how we teach, is by our mistakes. It's easier to listen to someone who's been through it, and that's one thing coming to the Bay Area. It's a different world from Texas, but there's just so much hurt that I see, and then God puts people in my life, and my heart just goes out to them. And in the past, I'd be like, oh, I feel so sympathy for them, But now I'm like, okay, God, I know this is you. What do you want me to do? And then even if it's just a prayer, even if it's just a hug, I think even those little things help them, And it's good to know someone's there.
You wouldn't be able to do those things unless you were listening to the still small voice. It's so small.
The one I used to ignore.
Yeah, I think we all have those issues, because we're so used to the loudness and the boldness, and then all God is doing is whispering.
Yeah, it is a
And
whisper.
You have to be still and know that He's God. To hear
That's
it,
true.
really.
You really
it's
do.
hard to hear the still small voice when you're watching TV shows you shouldn't watch, you're listening to music you shouldn't watch, you're talking to people and getting things in your ear, and you know how hard it would be to hear a whisper? Have you ever played the game telephone? Now that's difficult.
It always comes out different too. Always.
Exactly. Considering you've been through the things that you've been through today, how do you go about not focusing on your past, not focusing on your mistakes or, the sins and things that you've done? How do you look at yourself in the mirror and be okay with everything that you've done?
Well, it's happened, so I can't deny it, for one. Two, I know that God has purpose for me, and I know that there is a future. When I'm clothed in dignity and strength, that God's given me. So how could I be all pouty boohoo? My future can't be amazing and great if I keep living in the past. If I keep mourning what happened back then, or who I left back there, or who left me, I can't move forward. I can't go forward into God's promises.
Mm-hmm. But just to give people a little bit of encouragement,
Mm-hmm.
What is it like when you do what you just said? What is it like grasping and taking hold of the woman of God that you are, the child of God that you are, and being just expectant of what God has in the future for you?
It's kind of amazing because, even when I was walking in the world, I never knew what to expect. Now I still don't know what to expect, but it's kind of neat just knowing that God's there with me, just feeling his arms wrapped around me saying, I gotcha. It's just amazing because even if I do stumble or fall, he's going to be there just to pick me right back up. And we all do. We all stumble, but knowing that I have that support system, a family and friends, and of course the Lord, it's just, I'm just thankful and excited to see what happens.
I'm excited too. I love hearing stories. It's just so awesome. It's so exciting to see how God is not only, I know God moves in my life, but I love seeing God move in other people's lives too.
Yeah.
I know something that I struggle with day-to-day basis, no matter how hard I try, staying focused and fixing my eyes on the things above. How do you achieve that mindset and focus in your everyday walk of life?
Well, when I was driving in my car from Texas, I told God that I'm completely yours. Who I was in the past is who I was. So that being said, I've kind of of course I don't look back, but I keep my eyes in the Word, and I don't really listen to circular music anymore. On occasion I have to throw some country music in there. But for the most part, I just listen to inspiration, inspirational speakers, Christian, and, just, I keep, positive words is what's fed to me, I don't like anything negative going on. I don't watch scary movies anymore, and I used to love them,
I used to love scary movies too. I used to watch them all the time, and I don't like them anymore. It gives me weird feelings. I'm I don't know. I don't even remember the hype about it. I don't get it. It's all good.
Yeah.
What advice do you have for not only women, but also men and of all ages who are struggling with making that commitment to take that step of faith from whatever God is asking for you to leave behind? Because we got a lot of baggage. And, if God's asking us to set our bags down and go, what advice do you have for them to truly make that step?
Just like with recycling, you put cans and bottles in a bag, and you keep them. Once you give them to the recycling place, once you give all that baggage to God, you get a reward for it. So it's so worth giving it up because you don't know what that reward's going to be. You don't know what God has for you until you give it away.
Wow, that was so beautifully said. We're going to quote Star on that, guys. I love that so much. And at the beginning of the show, we talked about how your title as a church volunteer doesn't define who you are, even though that's a great title, let me tell you. Just I'm not just a talk show host. I'm so much more than that. And, when we look at our identities and our worth in this world, we're going to be disappointed.
That's true.
Because the identities of me being a student and a reporter and a TV host, those things can be stripped away at any moment. And when that happens, if we don't know where our identity is, what else is there, So this is a tough question. It just could be just one word that you answer, and that's perfectly okay. But who are you?
Star. No, I'm kidding.
No. That was the one word. That was good. No, seriously.
I'm a daughter of a king. You know, like when you think of it that way, I mean, how amazing is that? You know, I mean, you could be so many things, but if you put a child of God, king, what else do you need? You know?
I think that was another great line from Star.
Gosh.
Well, you know, I adore individuals who are willing to share their stories, and I hope that you'd be interested in sharing your stories, and you can do that at shastasjourney.com. And Star and I talked about it, and we'd love to give some encouragement out to the ladies out there. And I have one lady in particular. She is my aunt, also Star's friend, that brought us together. And, you know, and that's really cool in itself because God places people in our lives for very special and particular reasons. And I'm just so blessed to know you.
Thank you. I'm so blessed to have met your aunt who brought you into my life. You know, I love y'all's family. You know, you're all pretty amazing.
Thank you. And I heard the little y'all in there, right? I love it. Do you miss Texas at all?
Well, you can take the girl out of Texas, but you can't take Texas out of the girl.
I gotcha.
Cheesy.
I gotcha. I mean, I can't deny it. It just sounds like something that you would see out of like a Hallmark movie, you know, like.
No.
No?
No.
Okay, well, you know, we are allowed to see differently, Star.
Yes, we are.
Well, we only have a few minutes left. I'd love for you to share, you know, what's on your heart of what you're expectant of, you know, looking forward in the future. Obviously, you can't tell the future. You know, you don't know what's going to happen. But what are you expectant of God doing in your life?
In my life, I just know that He's going to bring me out, you know. We all live in a little shell, but I just feel like there's so much more that He has for me. He's just going to, like a tissue box, just pull out so many different things. You know, I don't know what they are. I can't name each tissue paper, but God knows what they are.
But there are tissue papers.
Yes.
And there was a box.
Yes.
So I guess if you know those two things, you can be pretty expectant. And I want you to be expectant that God is going to do some incredible things in your life if you're trusting and you're willing to take His hand. I recently saw a sermon, and it was when anxiety attacks. And this pastor pointed out that I is in the middle of anxiety, right? And you know what else? I is in the middle of pride. And so when I heard that, I was like, wow. So he mentioned that, you know, pride is the root and anxiety is the fruit. And a person who struggles with anxiety, I know that it's not always easy to take your mind off of it, but when we humble ourselves before the Lord, it's incredible to see what He can do. And I think that Star's story is an incredible depiction of what can happen when you're willing to recycle everything, you know, continue to put things away that you don't want to take to California or you don't want to take to your next journey or destination, because the Lord has some really, really good things for you. And you're so worthy. You know, we may not be worthy of God's love, but He wants to give it to us.
Yeah, it's right there, waiting.
So take it, grab hold of it, go to shastasjourney.com, go to facebook.com/shastasjourney. Thank you so much, Star, for being on the show.
Thank you.
And I hope this encourages you guys to share your story. Hope you guys just sat back and were totally inspired. Please share this with other people so others can be inspired. And I hope you have an amazing and blessed day, guys.